While the high school experience is often marketed as being one which invites visions of bliss, this is not the case with our dear protagonist, an energy conservationist as he describes himself, though the feeling's mutual, of course. For what reason do students have to apply themselves? If the absolute minimum is what's required, then why bother going beyond the expectation? I mean, it's not like there's a girl who'll suddenly show up in my life, which means I'll have to start simping for her, right? So this guy starts simping for this girl, every time she says that she's curious about something. Hey Araki-san, there's a rumor going around that there's a ghost upstairs. I'm curious about that. Hey Araki-san, there's something sus in this book. I'm curious about that. Hey Araki-san, my teacher is mad at me in class. I'm curious about that. Hey Araki-san, the door was locked when I arrived. I'm curious about that. Repeat for 22 episodes. Now, you might ask me, Josh, how is this a Christian anime? Well, let me tell you how, dear viewer. The anime is definitely sending us a message that even if you simp for a girl for over 22 episodes, you're never going to hook up with her. In all seriousness though, the character development of the protagonist does reflect Christian teaching. That is that each of us are gifted with different things, and for Araki, that is the gift of deductive reasoning. Though despite his gift, Araki instead favors being lazy and procrastinating, which I think most of us actually do engage in. It's a reflection of what Paul writes in Romans 12, that if God has gifted us gifts, we ought to be using them. And although the catalyst for Araki is simping for this girl, for the Christian, our catalyst for using our gifts in service to others is ultimately Christ. The premise of Hyouka is matched with a cast of unique characters able to bounce off of each other, with voice actors creating stunning performances, not to mention all of the creative animation styles used when the characters recount anything. I do have a lot of praise for the way that the animators use visual storytelling to really hammer in a point. The first episode sets us up with an experience of a series which really exceeds expectations, of plots only able to be unraveled after Araki figures them out, of wholesome moments with Chitanda not knowing what to do with herself, of some funny haha moments with Ibara and Fukube. So with all this glowing praise, I surely must have enjoyed Hyouka. Dialogue-heavy shows have never really bothered me much. The reason being that witty comments and clever commentary sprinkled with occasional moments of action sequences usually keeps my attention, which means that I should have enjoyed the Hyouka experience, but alas, this was not the case. Some sequences of dialogue felt stretched out to the point of leaving me bored, and I found myself that I had to actually force myself on some days to continue watching the show, only to be disappointed in the surface-level emotional payoff in the finale, which has probably already been better coalesced in the light novel, which still continues to this day, and which has yet to and likely never will be adapted into an anime. That's why I have trouble recommending this to you, dear viewer. Yes, it's true that this show gets a thumbs up for Christian viewers for its narrative and lack of fan service, which isn't evident in the OVA, so don't watch the OVA. And yes, the values that Hyouka does promote, whether or not it was intentional, would be beneficial for Christian living, but if you find yourself bored at the end of the first episode, I'm not going to tell you to keep watching till episode 13 when it finally gets interesting. What I am going to tell you is that if you can't get invested into the characters and into the story by episode 3, you can drop it. I had such high expectations for Hyouka, considering how hyped up Chitanda is as a waifu in various circles, as well as being one of the only KyoAni shows which is rated above an 8 on my anime list. But instead, I found myself with a bad taste in my mouth after episode 22, and left the show a 5 out of 10 overall.
Yeah.